Hi, everybody. The movie begins with Iris lying awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. She hasn't slept in days as grief has consumed her, and she's reached a breaking point. She heads downstairs, grabs her car keys, a small penknife, and a toy boat. Iris drives through the winding mountain roads and arrives at an isolated hiking trail. It's the place where her son died in a tragic accident that happened while she and her husband were distracted. Unlike her husband, who seems to have moved on, Iris is trapped in an endless cycle of guilt and sorrow, blaming herself every day. At the summit, she stands by a small shrine she built for Matteo. She places the toy boat gently next to some faded flowers, then uses the penknife to carve initials into the tree bark. She steps closer to the edge of the cliff, contemplating the unthinkable. Just then, she hears a voice beside her. He mentions losing someone he loved deeply, a girlfriend who died in a car crash. Iris listens and slowly drops her guard, and for the first time in months, she feels a tiny spark of connection. Iris finally finds the courage to speak. She talks about Matteo, about the moment she looked away, the moment Matteo fell off the cliff. Richard listens without judgment. He doesn't try to convince her to step back. Instead, he simply comments on how beautiful the day is. It's enough to pull her away from the edge. They walk back together to the parking lot where Iris notices something strange. Richard's car is parked unusually close to hers, despite there being plenty of space since there are only 2 cars in the lot. When he presses a button, it turns out to be a taser. Iris wakes up in a daze and panic sets in as she realizes she's in the backseat of Richard's car with her hands and legs tightly bound. Richard tells her that her smartwatch is useless, as there's no connection. Her phone is nowhere in sight. She left it at home. Richard, or whatever his real name is, has done this before, and Iris is now part of his twisted game, but there's one thing he overlooked: he didn't check her pockets. Iris feels the handle of her small pocket knife. She tries to buy herself time, engaging Richard in conversation. As Iris tries to exit the car, Richard recovers quicker than she expects. He grabs her, but she manages to free herself from him using her knife. As Iris tries to escape, Richard tells her he's drugged her with a relaxant designed to shut down her nervous system within an hour. There's no time to think. Iris runs into the forest. With each step, she feels her strength waning. Her fingers are already going numb. She quickly sets her watch to a 20-minute countdown. The drug is kicking in, and her legs become weak. She's barely able to stay upright. Richard isn't far behind. She can hear his voice echoing through the trees, taunting her, calling her name like it's just a game. Desperation grips Iris as her legs finally give out, and she collapses to the ground, dragging herself into a hollow space under a tree's root, just big enough to hide her. For a brief moment, she feels a flicker of hope, but then ants begin to crawl on her. They swarm over her arms and face, and a small cry escapes. Her lips. It's enough to make Richard turn his head and spot her. In a desperate move, Iris drags herself out of hiding and crawls into a nearby river. The river is rough, but it's her only chance. She lets the water carry her downstream away from Richard's reach. Richard watches from the bank, his eyes dark with anger. The river tosses her around like a rag doll, her head bobbing in and out of the icy water. Finally, she grabs onto a tree sticking out of the riverbank and drags herself onto land. She's exhausted, and her breathing is labored. Then her watch beeps and the drug fully kicks in, locking up her entire body. She hears a faint buzzing sound of a mower. When it gets closer, an elderly man, William, appears. He rushes over, checking her pulse. Iris can't move or speak, but she can hear and see everything. William notices the tiny movement in her eyes as she blinks, signaling to him that she can hear and understand him. William lifts Iris into a wheelbarrow and wheels her into his small cluttered kitchen. As he's about to call the cops, a loud knock interrupts him. Iris's eyes widen in terror. She blinks rapidly, signaling danger. William, confused at first, quickly understands and hides Iris behind the sofa. When he opens the door, he sees Richard standing there, pretending to be hurt from a car crash. Richard introduces himself as Iris's husband, making up a story about her recent mental breakdown. He pleads with William to use his phone, claiming his was lost in the wreck. William tells him to hold on while he gets the phone, but to his surprise, Richard is already inside without him knowing. Richard's eyes sweep the room, searching for potential hiding spots. Sensing something's off, William demands he wait outside, but Richard refuses. William threatens to call 911 if Richard doesn't comply. This makes Richard put on a heartfelt act, his voice cracking as he talks about his troubled marriage. William lowers his guard. The mention of marital troubles stirs something deep within him, a painful reminder of his late wife and their own struggles. He nearly tells Richard where he hid Iris, but then phone rings. Richard doesn't waste a second, he finishes the job. Richard pours fuel across the wooden floor. He grabs a matchbox, preparing to destroy any evidence, especially now that the authorities are on their way. He glances around one last time, but fails to notice Iris lying on the ground behind the sofa. He sets the house on fire. As Richard is about to leave, Iris, with no other option, signals him to rescue her. She manages to move the blinds as a visual cue to Richard. Despite the hell he's put her through, Iris is begging him to save her, and he does. As Richard drives off in William's truck with Iris slumped beside him, he pinches her arm and a slight scream from pain signals to him that she's beginning to regain control of her body. Then his phone rings. It's his wife Lizzie calling with their daughter, Olivia. Lizzie chats happily, planning a surprise visit to the family cabin for the weekend, the very place where Richard planned to continue tormenting Iris. Her heart pounds as she realizes Richard has been using this family cabin as a facade for his secret horrors. After hanging up the call, Richard pulls into a gas station and steps out, leaving Iris behind. A young boy about Mateo's age walks by and catches her eye. He pauses, sensing something is wrong. His mother also notices Iris's blank, desperate expression, but before she can approach, Richard strides back. He climbs into the truck and speeds away, leaving the woman staring after them as she calls 911 and expressing her fear that the woman inside might be in grave danger. Arrive at Richard's wrecked car, where he grabs more zip ties and a syringe filled with relaxant, dropping them on the dashboard. He then attempts to tow his car using William's truck, but before he can, a police cruiser pulls up. Richard moves quickly, dragging the officer's body into the cruiser before setting it on fire. As they leave the scene, Richard weighs his actions. This wasn't part of his plan. He's always been careful, but because he forgot to check Iris's pocket, he's crossed a line. His mind is so occupied that he doesn't notice the syringe on the dashboard is missing. Iris tries to distract him again by talking, asking about his late girlfriend, Chloe, and it works. Richard begins to open up, admitting that losing Chloe wasn't what turned him into a monster. It was the perverse clarity he felt watching her take her last breath, a moment where he felt like a god. The distraction seems to work until she brings up his daughter, Olivia, warning him that his actions could destroy his family. That's when he realizes she's just a victim, she's a witness who knows too much. Richard immediately changes course towards an empty waterfront where he plans to end Iris, but that's when Iris stabs him in the leg with the syringe. Richard then ties her hands and shoves her into a small boat. As Richard is preparing to end Iris, she cries for the first time since Mateo died, and Richard feels a twisted sense of pride. She then begs him to do one last thing for her. The shots also puncture the boat and water begins gushing in. Eventually, the boat sinks and Iris is pulled into the water with her hands still tied. Miraculously, she makes it to the shore. She finds Richard, who has also somehow survived and managed to swim back. He's dying, but he's not dead yet. His eyes meet hers as she drops to her knees beside him. The same words he once spoke to his dying girlfriend. He tries to speak, but only blood bubbles from his lips. Iris feels a strange, serene, calm wash over her, and for the first time in a long time, she feels alive. Like and subscribe for more interesting movie like this. Turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.